mentioned you're a writer and also you're an artist and also now you're a jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Yay.
What does that say about, because I often think about this, what does that say about the identity people hold or people like kind of put in themselves, you know? Because someone would say that, like, you know, if you're a writer, you shouldn't be doing combat sports. So if you're combat sports, you shouldn't be painting, you know, doing paintings and stuff like that. But you've learned something because you've done this. What have you learned? What is that? What do you think that says about the identities people hold on themselves?
I think obviously it's very personal, but I think the moment that you free yourself from this mindset of being a one singular being, your life just gets so much easier. And I think even if we take a step down from, you know, complexity regarding like different parts of somebody's life, like sport and then art practice and then, you know, your job and etc. etc. I was even struggling with that element within my art practice, because I remember thinking, okay, well, I like oil paintings and I like doing digital stuff and I like graphic design and I like photography. I have to pick one because otherwise I will not go anywhere. And it's kind of like that trick of that, what's that way of saying, like jack of all trades? Yeah.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Exactly. Oh my God, the moment that you abandon that thinking, because who cares? Who cares? There's people that are incredibly talented on one singular aspect of something and they put their 100%, good for them. I think for the longest time I wanted to be that person. But then actually realizing, fuck it, I can enjoy more than one thing. It actually enriches your whole practice. And then if we go back to your point, if you apply that same thinking to stuff that is also outside of your art practice. So for example, I draw, but I also enjoy sports. Like I'm very competitive, or I like the idea of maybe, I don't know, applying a type of lifestyle like an athlete. Who cares? Do it. And guess what? I think doing those sort of things actually enrich your art practice. Obviously, also yourself as a person, but it feels so good to think. It feels so good to think that I'm not taking time away from my practice. I'm actually like cultivating it in an indirect way.
Absolutely.
What do you think about?
No, I 100% agree. I think so. Yeah, I'm very similar. I think I've always been that way ever since I was a kid. I would read a lot, but I'd also play football. Like I played football every day, and then when I wasn't playing football, I was reading. Or like, you know, I guess when as I got older, it became poetry, and it became jiu-jitsu, it became podcasts, and it became something else. I think it's I've always known that like the breadth of who you are is more important than the singular thing you focus on. And I always had this like kind of like understanding that I have so many sub-identities within me. And those sub-identities are actually far more interesting than the overall identity. Whereas obviously if your friends would know you as one thing, you know, they know you as, you know, Chloe, and you obviously know who Chloe is, but Chloe knows herself even more deeper as like what you're interested in, the things that you choose to focus on, the things that you read, or even for me, for example, right? When I started like doing poetry, went from being a sports person, I always knew, I was like, oh, like this is so interesting. And like the idea of like following your interest has always been clear to me. And so like I always done that, like this is fascinating to me, you know. And so for me, I will go down that route. And because I have that kind of understanding about what interesting to me is actually what's more like salient, I go deep into that, and then when I come back out, it kind of helps everything else.
So you never felt the pressure of having to stick to one thing?
I mean, from the outside it was there, but I didn't care when I was doing what I cared about. You know, I'm a very like, I think maybe also because I like spending time on my own. So if I spend time on my own, I don't care what people think about what I'm doing. If I'm watching a history video, like, you know, I'm focused on like, I don't know, you know, intellectual discussions, you know, to me, that kind of fostered that kind of perspective of like, if you don't like what I'm doing, of course you don't. You're not me. You know, what's more important is what I think is interesting. So I've always been like that way. And like the outside perspective would come in, and then it's funny with that because it comes in as like a soft thing where it's like, oh, like you shouldn't do that. But then when you start just being obsessed with what you do and talking about it, people start being interested. So it's kind of that thing where it's like, if you get through the initial kind of pressure about what you should do, what you shouldn't do, people start actually being interested in it because you actually go and find the gold and you can come back and be like, oh, by the way, this is cool, you know? And I think it's so important. And I think I want to talk a little bit more about like that, like identity now, because I think like people's, you know, like for example, I was talking to a friend of mine, you know, about this, you know, so it's about like the mandem. Do you know what you know what mandem is, right?
No.
Mandem. So it's like, you know, people from like Africa or like Caribbeans from a certain part of London, they address themselves as mandem. You know, they wear the tech nines. It's like an idea of like someone who's from London and like I guess subculture, right?
Okay.
And like we were talking about how people would be in that subculture and just kind of stick to that subculture, and then they wouldn't like get out of that subculture to learn new things outside of that, and they'll be kind of like chained by this idea of who they're supposed to be, you know. And like I was like, I've never been like that. I've never cared to be like that. It's never been an interest to me to appear this way because of other people's perspective of everything. You know, and he was asking why, and I was like, I don't know. I guess maybe I cared more about my internal, you know, my internal than the external. I've always cared more about my own opinions of myself than other people's opinions of me. And my own opinion of myself has been so like, I guess like focused that it kind of as points hurt because it was like so much going on up here. But out there could never influence in here. Like it was always louder in here than it was out there. Is that something you found to be the case for you? What's your relationship been with like, you know, like you said, you know, like you were a fighter when you were younger and you become an artist. Have you also found people's external trying to like influence that, and have you kind of like, if you've had to, push back against that?
Oh, that's such an interesting question because it's a bit hard to look back, and I wouldn't say so. Like I don't think I had pressure from other people or like the outside of being something else than what I was trying to be. I think if what I received was more like a resistance of what I wanted to be without anything clear pushed onto me. Like, for example, it's not like my mom was like, oh, I don't know, you have to be a lawyer necessarily, but for sure there wasn't really that much of an enthusiasm of me pursuing a creative career, which is even more disorienting because at least if I had somebody telling me do X, you know, like do this or do that, like at least I don't know, it would be, I guess, if it would feel like a suggestion. But no, it was just like whatever you want to do, it's not really good, you should do something else. It's like, oh, that's hitting. And at the same time, I don't know, you know, when you describe like that you always were good on like with your own company, right? I think it's something about creative practices that makes you comfortable with your solitude or like your own company. And I definitely had that. But at the same time, like for example, when I was in high school, I was very much on my own. I didn't have that massive friend group. I had like my 3 or 4 like close friends, or 2 or 3, which I should say. And then when I was doing karate, like nobody else around me was doing martial arts. So again, it was very isolating because it felt like nobody could relate. And my dojo, I mean, I liked it, but it wasn't even the best community because it was a group of 8 guys and then myself. So there was a little bit of much that abrasiveness, should say, like between the genders. So again, very isolating. I think I am glad to have found this courage, I should say. I don't know how to describe it, but like I guess at some point I got tired and I was like, I'll just do whatever I want to do. Even if it's weird, or even if people think that maybe sports and art doesn't make any sense, or even if people say, oh, but all this time that you're putting on the dojo, you should put it on to art. I don't care at this point. I think it's one of the bliss of getting older because like I used to give a fuck because I was younger and so I was lacking confidence. Now at this point it's like, why should I listen to you?
Absolutely.
And at the same time, not caring led me to finding this amazing community. So it feels less isolating. And I think at the point that I was trying to make is the true liberating act is just to create an identity that works for yourself. So I don't know, maybe you're a musician that does rock climbing and is learning languages as a hobby and also collects stamps. That's amazing. I think the way that you said it before, like the breadth of that person. Yes, exactly. It's like, allow yourself to be complex, man. Like, why I don't understand where this stems from, of a society of having to be one thing, or even worse. I noticed this especially on social media. There's this whole thing of like, oh, you're good at, I don't know, crochet. You should you should sell your jumpers. Like, why does everything have to be about money?
Yeah.
Like, we cannot let creativity just be creativity anymore, or like craft for the sake of craft.
Absolutely. I think it's like, you mentioned it right too. It's like, if you start a thing, I think it's almost a complicated relationship that competent people have with new hobbies, right? It's like you start something, I want to be really good at that. Like, we were joking like, before. I remember we were saying that I want to be a black belt. Yeah, you too.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, I have that, and I have that because I want to be good. I want to get better. I know that outcome. It's not really about being a black belt that matters. It's about enjoying the sport for that long. But I forget a lot of the time, when you're really good at something, you want to be the best at it, and then it becomes hustle, another way to hustle, another way to side project, you know, rather than just being something you do to just relax.
Yeah. Even if I have to say, with jiu-jitsu, the belt thing, like, because you're right, you do have that eagerness of like, oh, I want to, like, to be even just a purple belt. Like, I would be happy like that.
They look so cool walking around in the purple belts.
Yeah. But then it's kind of like a wake-up call, because I think in jiu-jitsu it's very clear the amount of years that each belt takes. It's not very arbitrary. Like, it's very much, I would say, because at least again, I compare it to karate because that's my background, but I think it's very clear. Like, it's usually 2 years for each belt. So whenever I find myself thinking of fantasizing about, oh my god, imagine being like a blue belt or a purple belt or whatever, I'm like, yeah, okay, but remember, like 6 years.
Absolutely.
6 years on the mats.
Yeah.
But that helps me, you know, because it's a way of measuring. Like, for example, if you tell me like, oh, do you want to be great at crochet? I'm like, yeah, but how do I even get that? No clue, because I don't know what's the road to there. At least with jiu-jitsu, it feels like, do you want to spend 6 years on the mat? Hell yeah. I can't wait, actually. So it doesn't feel that daunting. It feels encouraging, but in a very sick and twisted way.
Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, because to me, it's like, and also you see the people, then you see the discipline they've been able to inhabit in their own life. I think that's what I'm more fascinated by. Like, black belts are just like cool people. Like, they're just like,
impressive,
you know? And I think that's kind of like what I'm, you know, it's that kind of live outlook. That's what I'm trying to chase. Speaking on, actually, like we were talking before about identity and like, you know, society on social. And I think I mentioned to you before about Substack. And I feel like how Substack is a very interesting way we can understand the culture, because people inside the culture will write articles about what they experience. And I think I love those like little like relationship / life outlook kind of Substacks they kind of like it's like a bubble that there exists. I know you're also on Substack too, and you recently wrote a Substack called Let the Male Perform. Talk to me about that. Let's start there, because I want to go into about relationships and culture and I guess love and society and all of that, but start from there. What inspired this Substack of yours?
Cool. So